Live from Met Spring Training in Port St Lucie, Florida. It's Locked Up Sports. Your team, your town, your show.
Locked Up Sports live from Clover Park in Port St Lucie. Mets in action right now. They have a scoreless game in the fourth inning. Paul Blackburn, though, who's been the only question mark for the Mets, pitched 4 solid innings, no runs, 2 strikeouts. Brett, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Going on. Also today we have David Wright in town. Interviews today with David Wright on the field. He's going to be teaching the young players. Hopefully we can catch up with him tomorrow. We'll be at the game, pregame tomorrow on the field. So looking forward to a whole bunch more action.
First time he put the uniform on since playing, and so he did a whole interview. Here's a little bit of what David Wright said when he met the media today.
Be in this lineup, where would you hit in this lineup?
I mean, they put the best hitter at what, second or third now? So, my, favorite players. I love watching them play. I love the smile. I love the enthusiasm. But I think you could, make a case for a number of guys in there. Francisco, obviously being, on that list. But what a great problem to have that you have the type of leadership where, you have a handful of guys that can report straight to, and that's what. I think that's one of the biggest positives or one of the biggest advantages that you have with this type of clubhouse is that a lot of the nonsense never gets to Mendy's desk.
So again, the Mets are scoreless in the fourth inning. Yesterday they had a loss, but Urena came in. He pitched to give 5 runs in a third of an inning. But the big story from yesterday's game was McGill, who again, 4 solid innings, no runs, 5 strikeouts. And he's been solid most of the spring.
The Mets pitching in general has just been solid. Outside of Paul Blackburn, who's been the only question mark, the Mets pitching has really jumped up, and even guys up to Brandon Sproat, who, he'll be starting in the minors, but look to see him in the rotation throughout the year.
So we're here all week, and Brett, we got Mark Healey.
Coming
up. He's our interview. So Mark Healey, let's get to the interview. We'll be back with you on the other side. Enjoy the interview. This is Mark Healey of Gotham Baseball. I'd like to welcome in the editor-in-chief of the Rockaway Wave, the founder of Gotham Baseball, and one of the best follows on Twitter, if you're a Mets fan, Mark Healey. Mark, thanks for giving us a couple minutes here today.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, last year, I know for me and for Brett, we were at all those playoff games. That was one of my favorite years being a Mets fan, as an adult at least. Give us a quick, of your take from last year and the run that this team went on and everything that happened.
Well, what was interesting about last year's team is I remember, a lot of people not being positive about the season, going into it. A lot of people didn't necessarily like the way that the team was built. People expected, I guess, David Stearns, the Mets president of baseball operations, even though that people were talking about that it was going to be a transition year, I think people still expected, that, once Steve Cohen got his guy, that the Mets were going to be, really good and we're going to spend money, and but with all the dead money on the roster, a lot of people just didn't have a lot of expectations. I had done probably about 4 or 5 podcasts before the season started, and a lot of people were asking me what I thought about the team, and I said, look, I think they're a playoff team. I think they're a good team. I think the core's there. I think some of these pitchers. I wasn't high on the Severino signing, but I was like, look, this guy Stearns knows what he's doing. I said, just trust the process. This isn't, Fred Wilpon, Sandy Alderson, whatever.
That pitching carried the team last year, too.
Exactly. So when you look at, where they were, 11 games under 500, I think it was on June 11th was the...
Yeah, it was right around there.
Yeah.
Something like that. So they're 11 games under. And I put out a tweet, and I said, look, I know at this moment it sounds ridiculous, but I really believe that this team is going to find itself and be in the mix for the postseason, going to make the postseason. And again, I wasn't trying to, be clickbait. I wasn't trying to be a contrarian. I honestly felt that way. And to see the things that they did. And I remember a moment when Jesse Winker had hit a home run for the Nationals against the Mets.
Against
the Mets.
Oh, my God. And I tweeted, I don't know if I can curse on here. I tweeted, I hate that goddamn Winker. And, and I basically have felt that way like his entire career because I could not stand him. And then once he came to the Mets, he immediately, was an impact player, obviously. People were down on Lindor, people were down on Pete, people were down on, just about everybody. And then all of a sudden, they started making that run, Look, I'm an old guy. I've seen a lot of Mets baseball over the years. So it gives me, a different perspective than, let's say, somebody that's been watching the team maybe for 10 years, or whatever. So I've seen Mets teams like last year's teams, maybe not winning the World Series, but like the 99 team was a lot like last year's team, where, they kind of just, came together. And it was like almost at once, and you had, great, you had the journey, almost the journey of the Mets was the journey of Edwin Diaz last year too.
Yeah.
Watching him struggle coming back from the injury, watching him, give up huge home runs in the worst possible spots, but Mendoza having the faith and bringing him back the next day and shutting the team out. And you saw that kind of gradually. And it was a microcosm, against the Braves on that last day, that last day of the season, right? He gives up the lead, and then it's like, get me back out there, put me back in. And Mendy's saying, go get him,
I don't think he had anybody else, though. I don't think he had anybody else to put in at that point. He's not going to take him. At that point, it's yours to win or lose, right? You're going to go down with the ship.
Yeah, but, some other managers, they might be –
panic.
You know what I'm saying? Well, or they might say, what do the sabermetrics say? What do the analytics say?
Especially when you let the runner run.
And that's the thing about Mendy that I like so much. I mean, here's a guy that understands analytics, but at the same time seems like he's a baseball guy, which is great because analytics doesn't. I mean, I know people will talk about it's everywhere and everybody does it. All the successful teams. New York is built different, man. We are built different here. This is a baseball town. We love our baseball. That doesn't mean there's no room for analytics. Of course there is. I mean, you'd be stupid not to use it.
Yes.
But at the same time, we want baseball guys. We want that kind of old school approach. Rub some dirt on it. We just are. It's not just old guys like me. I know there's plenty of young guys like you.
You posted something about Jim Rice. Jim Rice the other day.
Oh my God.
I mean, Jim Rice.
Yeah, no, that's not what we do. Yeah, it's Jim Rice.
Jim Rice giving a guy advice, and they go, no, that doesn't align with our way we do things.
Oh yeah, I love that. No way.
And he didn't listen. And it was probably a 25-year-old kid that said that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And it's funny that you bring up how you've seen a lot of Mets teams, because the only people who I heard that were positive, me and Brett were laughing last night. We were replaying something that I had posted that I said on the show, and I was like, Alonso stinks. Lindor was stuck with the contract. What are we going to do? Diaz stinks.
Beatty was supposed to be in the minors, and even Vientos wasn't doing it, early. But it turns out that, you look back and what carried us? The pitching stepped up.
You and Bob Usler are the only two that were positive the whole way. And like you said, you've seen it a million times. It's a long season. It's a long haul baseball.
Bob was worried about what are we going to do with this Lindor contract.
Yeah, I was like, who's going to take the Lindor contract? I mean, how crazy is that? Now, speaking of Beatty, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, Bob Usler, somebody that, from FAM, Mr. Met, Francesa would always call him Mr. Met. It's funny. I know a lot of people just like you, that were like, this guy stinks and that guy stinks. And look, I'm not above criticism. I'm not a shill either. Like, if the team needs to be criticized, if they're doing bad things, I'm gonna say it. But I know, I just felt like this team, these players are just too good to be this terrible. I just felt like at some point, unlike the previous season, where I really felt that, they were struggling and then they started to trade everybody. I didn't want them to trade. When they traded Robertson, I knew they were going to go full but I didn't want them to. Because I felt like, look, this is what the team, you got Verlander, you got Scherzer, just go down fighting.
It's still paying.
It turns out it was the right move.
No, it was. How much you see this administration, the man who's, at the helm this year at the trade deadline, having faith and not, selling all of these guys off. And we would have never gotten the season that we got if that's what happened.
Oh, exactly. And that's why you just don't panic. You just don't. It's stupid. First of all, the trade deadline's too early.
You think so? July.
Yeah, I think it's too early. It should be the middle of August.
Definitely.
I think.
Yeah,
because the way that baseball
wild card, and now not knowing if you're going to be
everybody's
still in the race no matter what, and now you have to make this decision of what you're doing so early.
Well, not only that, but it's just the way that baseball's set up. It's almost like they're set up one way, and then they have the trade deadline is July 31st this year. It's not even August 1st or August 2nd. Yeah. It's July 31st. They announced it, I think, yesterday. It's too early for some teams, especially those teams that have trouble selling tickets.
When do you think it should be?
I think it should be the middle of August.
Okay.
I think by the middle of August, like August 15th. That's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It might not seem like a lot.
No, but a lot happens in 2 weeks.
Those 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
The middle of August is much different. The dog days are all find out really what teams are, what they're all about. You even look at the Mets. By the time that happened, you had a much better idea who that team was as opposed to in mid-July.
Yeah. And
well, not only that, but look, it's not only that. It's also, what is the value of those players at that moment? Some of these organizations don't care about winning. And if they have a player, I mean, Stearns did it. Stearns did it a couple of years ago with Milwaukee when he traded, he traded his closer, right? He traded Josh Hader. And Milwaukee was kind of in the playoff hunt a little bit. But at that point where he had no assets, he really didn't have any kind of payroll flexibility. He traded guys when his team was in the playoff hunt because he needed assets. Fortunately, he doesn't have to do that here.
So now you move ahead, and we got Soto, and then the whole thing with that goes down. Is it a little? To me, it's a little because we're not going to have a season like that anymore, like we had last year. Because now it's going to be more expected. We're not going to be the underdogs coming out of nowhere, and that was part of the fun. Yep. Is that it came out of nowhere? It was so unexpected. The Yankees are very businesslike. The Yankees and the Dodgers, they weren't even satisfied to get to the World Series. Every time the Mets won a game in the playoffs, we were like, wow, this is great. We enjoyed it more, I feel like. Yeah, does that kind of, are you going to miss that a little bit? Because that's almost our mantra, like, no, you're not.
No, because first of all, I don't buy into it. I'm a Mets fan because I'm a Mets fan. I don't buy into that underdog, I just don't. I mean, to me, I've been rooting for the Mets since 1975, okay, because my dad's a huge Met fan, and that's why I root for the Mets. I don't buy into – look, I'm not saying that other people that do buy into that are wrong. I'm just saying for me, baseball is such a big part of my life, and it's just such a constant, those 162 games, listening to the games on the radio, watching the games, going to the games, covering the games. Like it's such a inherent part of my fabric. I don't get into what's the theme this year. I don't get into that, that's for other people. And again, they're not wrong. You're not wrong if you get into the grimace. Like my wife called me a hater the other day because we're talking at the dinner table, and one of my kids is like, "So what's going to be this year? OMG, grimace." I said, first of all, I didn't even like the song OMG. I'm like one of those guys.
It wasn't a good song.
The grimace thing, I was like, it's just not my thing.
It's Bush League. It's Bush League. Is what it is.
It's like the rally pimp.
I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't even say that because it really energized the fans. The players loved it. So it's okay for them. But it doesn't affect me either way. I like winning baseball. I like players who play hard, and I love the Mets. So for me, it's really about, is everybody healthy? Is this team going to contend? Is the ownership and the front office doing right by the fans? Those are the things. Those are the themes that I care about. Because, look, I'll be honest with during the Wilpon years, especially after the Madoff situation and when they forced Doubleday out, Nelson Doubleday, it was 2002, I was just as miserable as Joe and Clark, and all those other lunatics. Because I was miserable. I said, look, as long as these clowns are going to run the team, we're not going to win. Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always about, the season is 162 games. You'll know by Memorial Day, you'll know by Memorial Day whether or not your team has a shot. And it doesn't mean
that's
you know what I'm saying? You just have
the quarter pole of the season, kind of, you kind of know where you take a temperature then. Now, coming into this, last year we kind of got caught lightning in the bottle with the pitching a little bit. This year we come in, you get Mania gets hurt. You know, we have a bunch of injuries. Now in spring training, the pitching's been great so far, but for the most part, I don't really put too much stock into that. Do you think?
No.
Do you think they're taking a big risk going into the season with this staff that they have and this starting staff?
I probably would have picked up a couple of, veteran guys. I probably would have signed Quintana, but I don't know how much I would have done differently. I was big on bringing Seth Lugo back last year. I don't know why they didn't do it.
He was Cy Young last year too.
No, but here's the thing. I kind of agree with Stearns that sometimes when you overpay for starting pitching, it really can come back to bite you in the ass. I was not overly, and I'm not a Yankee hater. I'm not one of those. I've been covering the Yankees almost as long as I've been covering the Mets. And I just thought the Max Fried deal was very risky and a big overpay. I mean, the last time a lefty got that kind of a deal, it was David Price. How'd that work out? What do you have, one good year? One good year, one mediocre year, and done. Right? So, in this case, it was a good thing they got him because with Garrett Cole going down. But I wasn't necessarily disappointed that the Mets didn't, pull the trigger on any of these big time starters and 6 or 7 year deals.
Do you see him?
I was a little
No, he doesn't.
surprised by the Montas deal. I was a little surprised by that. But again, when it comes to Stearns, like I said, when they started making these kinds of moves, I said, look, this guy got this team 2 games away from the World Series. You got to trust the process.
Yeah, I agree. He knows he's smarter than all of us. But isn't the point of Cohen is that we can't overpay? That doesn't matter. We don't overpay for anything anymore. We can overpay as much as we want because he's got an endless supply of money.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Isn't the thing with Cohen is that it doesn't matter if we overpay and it's a bust. We just buy our way out of it.
But
but I think that's also a dangerous way to look at it too, because yes, but it's a dangerous way for the fans to look at it. It's because David Stearns knows exactly how much money he has to spend. And I'll give Sandy Alderson this pass. He never knew how much money he had to spend. Anybody that ever worked for Fred Wilpon, they didn't really have a set budget. They weren't like, okay, well, this is what we have to spend this offseason. It was never that.
Don't worry, the Madoff money's coming in. The Madoff money's coming in. We got extra.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's how they structured. We can laugh about it and joke about it, but it's the truth. That's how they structured the way that they spent money. And with Steve Cohen, there are too many fans that think like, oh, okay, well, if you sign this guy to a $150 million contract, if he's a bust, it's okay because Cohen's a billionaire. He didn't get to be a billionaire by making bad deals. Fair point. He wants to make good deals.
But this is also his toy. This is his toy.
Yeah, but just because you can afford it doesn't mean that you have to see beyond that. What in a year from now, 2 years ago, if you fill that spot, that doesn't mean a better guy can't bring in a better guy in. So you have to. You can.
Well, look at the Yankees. Look at what that Stanton. I mean, obviously Stanton's been good for them in the postseason, but look at what that contract has stopped them from doing.
Yeah,
right. and
you look
they,
at
and they're getting the insurance
long term. They wanted short term because they wanted some flexibility. They have younger guys who can come up. They might have Vlad Guerrero Jr. They have a plan. We may not know what it is yet, and it may not be Vlad Guerrero Jr. But I think Stearns, for the first time, the Mets aren't just winging it. I think they have that long term plan, even plan A, plan B. But I think they have an idea more than they used to.
Steve Cohen, being a Met fan, he understands that fans love homegrown players. And that's part of, when you look at the 86 Mets, for instance, they had a lot of guys that they got in trades. They had a lot of guys that they signed, but they also had Wally Backman. They had Mookie Wilson. They had guys, Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, guys that came up through the system. And fans love that. Yes, in New York, if you produce, we're going to love you no matter what. Whether it's Gary Carter, whether it's Pete Hernandez.
Look at Mark Messier. Mark Messier is a god here. He won 5 cups before he even came here. We really don't care that much, if you're homegrown.
Yeah, but that's because you need the veteran.
No, but it does give it
to support it.
But there is something to having those homegrown guys as part of the mix that kind of changes the way a fan base will root or fall in love
it's
with the
Leach,
team.
it's Richter, it's those guys on those teams. Yeah.
Who do you see
Right.
as the Mets?
Well, I'm an Islander fan, so we won 4 cups in a row. So.
Who do you see as the Mets?
Trottier won
future-
cups before we came to the Islanders.
After.
You're right after with the Penguins. Go ahead.
Now, which of
Afterwards.
the
Right.
who of the future Mets, the young guys, who do you think are almost untouchables? Who do you think will be on this team? Because somebody's going to get traded eventually for somebody, and some of these guys I feel like they're going to hold on to. And you're looking at Jeff Williams, you're looking at Ryan Clifford and Gilbert, and you look at the pitchers now that they have. Who's going to be on this roster this year, and who's going to get traded? Do you think by the deadline or later?
I really think that Sproat is untouchable. I would not trade him. I think that they have a plan for him. And, and again, it's hard because, there was a time when you covered the Mets, and if you covered it a certain way, you kind of knew how they felt about different players. Like I always knew that Wilmer Flores was one of those guys that Omar Minaya loved, and Omar Minaya wanted to be successful. So I kind of always felt that he would get an opportunity. Certain guys like that were protected, sometimes rightly and sometimes wrongly. Fernando Martinez comes to mind. But when, like for this particular group, I think Brett Beatty's one of those guys. And I know people will come to me and they'll be like, "You're out of your mind." I think Brett Beatty, the reason Brett Beatty is still a Met is because I think, even though he's not a Stearns guy, I think Stearns has a very high opinion of Brett Beatty.
I think he's a 4A player.
Well, because I don't think so. I really think that Beatty is going to be a very successful major leaguer. I really believe that.
Is he going to be the next second baseman, or is he going to what?
It's not the third baseman. We got our third baseman.
Yeah, where do you think?
No, well, look, for this year, I think Beatty's going to play a lot of different positions. I think you're going to see that, if he makes the team. I think he's going to play some outfield. I think he's going to DH. I think he'll spell Vientos in the late innings at third base. And again, we don't know, and when people kind of speculate, I'm not as high on Acuna as other people are. I think he's a good player. I think he's got value. I think he's got athleticism. I think he could be a great utility infielder type. I don't think he's a starting player in the major leagues, or at least an everyday starting player in the major leagues. But again, I'm not a scout, so what do I know? But I don't think anybody's untouchable, to be honest with you. Outside of Sproat, maybe Jonathan is another guy. There are people like, Joe DeMayo, my buddy that works for the Mets. I mean, that guy's a prospect guru. Ernest Dove is another guy, another great follow on Twitter that, covers the minor leagues, and he has a really good idea of who's who, especially the guys in Double-A and Single-A. I don't think anybody's untouchable. And I think when you're going to be a winning organization, the difference between greatness, the difference between being competitive every year and really competitive is knowing who to keep and knowing who to deal. And, the best example of that is Gene Michael with the Yankees. How many times they almost traded Mariano Rivera, how many times they almost traded Derek Jeter, how many times they almost traded guys like Bernie Williams, Andy Pettitte. Self-evaluation is almost more important to a successful team than it is evaluating other players, on other teams. Knowing what you have and knowing what you want. And that's why I think Brett Beatty is still here. I think maybe Billy Epler would have traded him. Maybe some other GM might have traded him for a starter or an everyday player. And again, I could be wrong. Everybody else could be right. But I think that's why he hasn't been moved. I think that's why, he's definitely worked on his swing. His swing is definitely different.
He's playing well in spring.
They need to get at-bats to be able to show that. So it's very hard if you're not getting those at-bats or, playing games at major league level to, to advance, I think. So it's going to be tough to see where does he play this out?
Well, again, it's April and May. You have injuries to players. You have guys that, are not going to play every day. I mean, we're going to see Jeff McNeil probably move around a lot. Jeff will probably start the season as a starting second baseman. But if Nimmo's hurt, are they going to put Jesse Winker out there every day?
And how
or are
hurt
they going to
is
put?
Is Nimmo?
Huh?
How hurt is Nimmo? Because you know him; he's going to go out there and play, whether or not he's a little injured or not.
No, I don't think he will. I think they're going to be very careful with Nimmo.
Good.
Dr. Healey, Dr. Healey.
Yeah, I think they're going to be very. I think they're going to be very careful with Nimmo. You know, because he is so valuable to the team, and I think we saw last year where he really struggled for weeks at a time because he was playing hurt. And I think that's one of the reasons they brought Jesse Winker back, so that they had a competent offensive outfielder that they could put out there, to play if Nimmo just can't go.
Okay. Is the disrespect that they showed Alonso, is that water under the bridge now, or is that going to be an issue if he's still in the locker room?
Well, I don't think the disrespect. I think that if Pete has a chip on his shoulder, that's on Pete.
Awesome.
I'll be honest with you. I don't buy into all this kumbaya. I was never going anywhere. I think he wasn't. He wanted to stay.
The Mets didn't
want him. He wanted to stay, but where was he for 3 months? His agent. I don't care what you read. I don't care what you hear.
The agent works for the player.
He was close to signing with Toronto because that was the only contract that was negotiated the whole offseason. That was the only one. All they were waiting for was his signature.
He would have been miserable.
That's it.
Toronto.
Yeah.
His wife didn't want to go to Toronto.
Yeah, and listen,
don't
the wife
believe
runs the
anything
show
else
too.
here.
The wife runs
When
the show.
you have built what you have, you got to this point with this team, and now you see what it's about to be. To walk away from that cannot be an easy thing for any player.
Hey, pay me enough money, I'll walk away from anything.
You're right. There's certain guys who feel that way. I don't feel Pete Alonso is that way. He's a homegrown guy. He likes New York, and maybe not it as it's went so far. But when you see that, you walk away and you get to go watch a team do what they're about to do for the next few years.
I don't think they care. I hope he does well. I hope he opts out, and then I want Guerrero next year. What do you think about that?
I look, that's not up to me. That's above my pay grade. I obviously think Vlad Guerrero would be certainly a great player to have at first base. Not really my kind of player, but I want to see what kind of year he has this year. I know he's lost weight. He's really not my kind of player.
Okay. How so is he not?
But neither is Pete. Pete's not really my kind of player either.
You don't like a power hitting first baseman? You like a Keith Hernandez, deep and more defensive type of?
I'm a Freddie Freeman guy.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah. That's the kind of first baseman I want. A Freddie Freeman.
We'll take Freddie
a
Freeman.
Fred McGriff. Yeah. I want a day in, day out, consistent presence.
Okay.
Somebody who's, hitting line drives, the occasional 3-run bomb, playing a really good defensive first baseman, playing, really good defensive first base. I don't know if that guy exists outside of, like Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
But, like players we want and players we want to acquire, it never goes the way we want. So rather than like hope for a player or like, to me, I just trust at this point, I just trust Stearns and he's going to do whatever he needs to do. And let's be honest, Pete only has himself to blame. If he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, don't hit 35 home runs, hit 45 home runs.
I don't think anybody's to blame, though. It is what it is. Don't
hit 80
it's business.
Don't hit 200 with runners in scoring position.
And he thought that, and you know what? And I get it. The fans love that home run, and it was a huge home run. And that home run, he will get standing ovations at Citi Field for 40 years because of that home run. And that team will come back and but that home run is not worth 5 years on a contract in the future.
No.
And I'm sorry, it's just not.
You don't reward yesterday's break, but this is about the future now. It's not about, what happened. Yes. It's going to be really interesting to see, where Pete ends up next year, and where the Mets go with this. But do you think that there's any interest in them trading for someone like Guerrero, or is that just a wait to free agency? Nobody wants to do what the Yankees did with Juan Soto, an expiring contract.
I think the time to get him would have been this spring training. Once his deadline was passed, he's going to be a lot more expensive, even though he's a rental. He's going to be a lot more expensive at the deadline, than he is now. I feel like. So I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen. I'm not locked in on that right now because we don't even know where we are at this point. They're not going to trade for Vlad Guerrero when
no,
they have
when
Pete
they-
Alonso
no,
making
yeah.
$30 million.
They just gave it to 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
Is Marte shot? Is Marte shot? Is Marte shot?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he might not be as healthy as we'd like him to be, but the guy can still, his at-bats are still great.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
like
his
Marte.
at-bats are
His
still
knees,
great.
though, it's the
And-
knees. He's getting
Yeah,
old
but
too.
you know what?
Like,
Like,
he's got,
not
you
gonna
know,
be out
I
in the
know.
field as much. He's going to be, more as a replacement. He's not going to be an everyday outfielder.
But here's the thing. If Marte's not contributing, he won't play.
Yep.
And if he gets hurt again, then they're going to just, I don't think they're going to cut him, but they're not going to force him into the lineup. This isn't one of those poverty franchise situations where he's making so much money that they're just going to throw him out there.
We ain't no poverty franchise.
I'm sorry?
We ain't no poverty franchise no more.
No, that's what I mean. Like they're not going to play
right.
guys just because of the contract. They're not going to not play guys for reasons that have nothing to do with baseball.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the thing about Marte for me is he's very respected on his team. The players love him. He's very important in the clubhouse. And he still has, I think, just watching him the other day, he's locked in, man. Like he knows how to hit the baseball. He knows how to execute.
He's a ball player.
If they can get him healthy, I think he's an important part of the team.
Now Lindor,
And he doesn't have to play every day either. He doesn't have to play every day on this team.
Now Lindor,
So maybe he gets healthier.
Lindor's on his MVP track. He's got 2 hits all spring. I'm sure he'll hit 120 through April. Do you want to see Lindor officially made the captain? Does that matter to you? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you're going to do it, it should have been done already. I don't, to me, I know that there's a very popular narrative that they're going to do it on the day that David Wright, or there's a rumor that they're going to have David Wright hand the torch. That's corny. I
agree.
I mean,
because that takes it away from David Wright too. Like that day.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean,
it's not hot.
Players know who the captain is.
I think he is the captain. I think they wanted to see if Lindor, if Soto maybe is that kind of personality, but I don't think he is. I think Lindor's the captain of this team.
Said that, so he's even come out and kind of said the same thing. Like, he is, but Lindor's the one who's runs this team.
I think the fans care more about it than anybody else.
Yeah,
it's like something for the fans. I don't think the players care.
Over or under 93 wins?
Well, every time somebody asks me that, I say the same thing. I'm bad at math. I'm terrible at predicting victory totals. I think they're a 90-win team. I think they should win 90 games. But I mean, I guess with the pitching and some of the injuries, I'd say under 93.
Yeah, I'd go under. I think they're about 80, 87, 88. And I think like, listen, they're in a good division still. The Braves are still good. The Phillies are still there. And it's the Dodgers to lose. Let's be real. Can they compete with the Dodgers? Can anybody compete with the Dodgers?
Yeah. Anybody can beat anybody.
Baseball, man. Baseball. No, anybody.
Anybody.
Exactly right.
Arizona Diamondbacks were in the World Series 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
You get 2 or 3 unhittable pitchers in that rotation and that are pitching every night, and you get some hot bats. Anybody can win anything.
All right.
Oh man.
All right. Yep. Well, Mark. Hey, listen. Mark is one of the best followers on Twitter because, like you said, you're not a homer. You're gonna say what you feel. You have some different type of opinions, which I like, and you always get like that Jim Rice thing. I like. Yeah, I was reading that. As soon as I read it from you, and that's how I found out. I went and did some research on it. I was like, what are these guys doing? Like it. Because I hate that when the 23-year-old nerd sitting in a room somewhere knows better than the guy sitting with a plaque in Cooperstown.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. I over the years, I've befriended people in the front office. I've befriended former players. And when I mean by befriended, it's not like any of them know who I am, with a few exceptions. But one of the guys I respect the most is Jim Duquette. And, Jim is just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And, Jim believes that, to be the best executive or to really be a successful baseball executive, that you have to have a healthy blend of respect for both analytics and for, the old school approach to baseball. Baseball guys,
go with your gut.
Baseball guys finding a way to coexist with the number crunchers, right? Numbers have always been a part of baseball.
Oh,
They've been a
always.
part of
Big
baseball
part.
since Branch Rickey hired the first statistician, in 1950. His name escapes me, but it's always been the problem is that when you have arrogance on either side of the equation, that's when teams just don't get it, right? So for me, yes, I could see the former player's perspective. Yes, I could see some of the the Moneyball kind of guys that came out of that, and the fans that buy into one or buy into the other. But like everything else in life, you got to find a balance. You got to find that balance between understanding and comprehending data, but also see the ball, hit the ball.
Yeah,
Throw the ball.
I couldn't agree more.
The over reliance on velocity. That's a drive line thing. Give me a Rick Reed who just carves up a lineup throwing 91.
Greg Maddux, man, there's nobody I'd ever want to watch pitch.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux. All
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, but I mean, even guys like, and again, like you go right to Greg Maddux. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer. He won a crap load of games.
Rick Reed's a replacement
You
player.
don't have, but I'm saying you don't even have to do that.
You're right.
Oh,
You
you're
don't
right,
even have to, like, there are plenty of guys that haven't been given an opportunity over the last 20 years, 15 years because of velocity as opposed to location. And I think,
and those guys might be able to give you more innings, more longevity, less issues. You watch now. Part of being a pitcher is getting Tommy John. That's now almost become part of being a pitcher.
I get on my father. I said I could have. You could have taught me a curveball or something. I'm left-handed. I could have been a soft tossing lefty 3 years and been out, made the couple $1 million, and we'd be set now. Now I wouldn't have to go to jail. I have to go to jail every day.
But that's the thing. Like, the key is, like with Moneyball, it was find guys who can get on base. Well, now everybody does that. Now people are looking at, I think, more teams, and they should be. More teams are looking at, let's get guys who are more level approach hitters as opposed to uppercut guys. And I think that some teams, if they're smart, should be looking at pitchers who can throw more innings. Because that'll save your bullpen. And that's one of the reasons why, outside of his ridiculous personality, Marcus Stroman was so valuable when he was a Met because he pitched 6 or 7 innings every time he went out there. I mean, I know the guy is,
He just burns bridges wherever he goes, though.
I mean, he doesn't burn them.
Yeah,
he blows them up.
He
annihilates them.
You're going to make him pitch the most innings of any of your pitchers the entire year, and then you're going to leave him off of your postseason roster. So that's what's going to happen for most teams, and he's going to blow up when that happens, like he always does. So there's some. But
I would like to see. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more of baseball teams looking at guys who can give them length, give them balance, and who knows? Maybe that's the future, kind of reinventing itself again. Who knows?
You think it's going to be more? I don't know. I think it may be like more 4-inning starters and a lot more guys in the bullpen going in the future. So
I hope not. I could see it.
I don't either. I love nothing better than showing up to a ballpark because this guy's pitching and you think you might get to see something special. And we have that, with certain guys that no matter what, no matter who they're playing, you will show up for that. But 4 innings of it, I don't know if I'm showing up for that.
It's funny. I want to say about 15 years ago, this guy who was, I don't want to say his name or anything, but he was a guy that was in my extended family type of thing. And I didn't really have a lot of respect for his sports knowledge. And he says to me, he goes, he's like one of those guys like, well,
Said the lower score first. Did the Mets win today? They won 4-5.
Yeah, kind of, right? So he's like, I think that with all the specialization now in baseball, you're going to have one pitcher pitch 1 inning, and you're going to have 9 different pitchers, right? And I was like, that's ridiculous. But you know what? Now that I think about it, I could definitely see a team do that.
I think the first inning's the worst inning of every pitcher, though. So you're going to get the worst of all. We need,
the teams aren't doing that much anymore. The open.
No.
You like the challenge system? You like the challenge with the robot umps and stuff?
Yeah,
balls and strikes.
I get why. I get why it's necessary, but it's not as bad as people say it is.
That was quick
I
too.
mean,
They're
look,
quick about it.
some strike zones are bigger than others. I mean, it happens. I think the outrage, honestly, is more about the rise of legal gambling.
Yeah,
I think
makes
the
sense.
people that cry about it the most
Yeah,
are the
that's
ones
good
that
too.
put
They're losing money
$100
with it.
on
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that actually that really
That don't cost me money.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And honestly, it drives me nuts. You see guys like Max Scherzer come out against it because when you have a guy, like some of the best parts is watching a pitcher manipulate the umpire and getting something and be able to work that zone. That's going away. Like if you're right on the edge and that pitch was working and that's the pitch. If it's a ball now, they're going to go against it. Now it's just I don't like where it's going to go. So many pitchers. We go back to Greg.
Well, that's why the pitch clock.
Yeah.
But that's why the pitch clock is stupid. You know, the pitch clock is stupid.
No, the pitch clock is
really
good.
messed
The pitch
up.
clock can speed those games up. That's one of the best things they've had in a long time.
No, I hate it. I hate it.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
crazy. You're crazy. Now, I like the challenge system because it's kind of like tennis too. The way they watch it, you can see it hit the thing. It's great.
That's not bad. I like that.
But the whole point of the pitch clock was to speed the game up. And have you seen how long it's taking to do the challenges? And as much as it's only 20 seconds, 30 seconds, that's the whole thing. Listen, we've watched this in football and everything else. If you want to stop, you want a quicker game, let's make it a quicker game. You wanted a better game, make it a better game. You can't have both ways. It takes a little time to figure it out.
I agree.
The Ghost
Runner. The Ghost Runner is I hate it.
Worse.
Everybody, the players love it. But the players love it.
They do because
the players don't want to play 15,
Get
16,
to the bar. Yeah, get to
games.
the bar.
As a fan, I can come at the ballpark. I'm not that I'd like to see how it ends, but I'm with you. That it's not going to last 16. Sometimes, maybe that's great as a kid, but now I'm like, oh man, after about 10, I'm done.
Yeah, you two are crazy. His name is Mark C. Healey, at Mark C. Healey on Twitter. Give him a follow. He's a great follow. Mets, and it's Rockaway Live and Gotham Baseball, right? Did I get it all?
No, it's the Rockaway Wave.
Rockaway Wave. That's what I meant.
You should see how it's
the Rockaway Wave on Twitter and Gotham Baseball.
At least I got the name right. Mark Healey.
So much,
Mark, thanks for giving us a couple minutes.
Thanks, guys.
How about that? Thank you. Mark Healey stood with us through some technical issues in the beginning. I love Mark. Mark's he's a great follow.
Great Mets insight. Really looking forward to see if what he says rings true this year with the Mets. And, as always, can't wait to have him back on.
Well, he said under 93 wins. I kind of stick with him with that. I'd say about 87, 88. But either way, hey, listen, we're going to have locked up drops, locked up loot
dropping all over the place. We dropped some Darryl Strawberry signed one, which got picked up. We got some spring training tickets and looked up for many, many more loot drops.
A lot going on here in Port St Lucie. That does it for us here today. For Brett Grasso, I'm Bob Walters from Clover Park in Port St Lucie.